So welcome to the Overture Live Coffee series. We'll be talking to experts about breast-related issues. So I'm thrilled to have Becky Crepsley Fox today with me. She's my first guest, super excited. We're here in Brighton in her lovely studio. Becky, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to learn from your expertise.
Yay, you're so welcome. It's so fun to be here.
So today we'll be discussing breast-related issues and their impact on women's health and well-being, including breast size, body image, breast cancer, and sexuality. So Becky is a registered sexologist and relationship therapist, and she also hosts a podcast called Sex Unshackled.
That's right.
Actually, during my journey, as I mentioned before, I was listening to one of the episodes with Natasha Gilbert about body positivity, body confidence in sex, and I really love how comfortable you make the listeners feel to share their experience. That's really brilliant.
Thank you so much.
So before we dive into the discussion, can you tell me a little bit more what inspired you to become a sexologist?
So where did it begin? I used to be a yoga teacher. I was a yoga teacher for about 10 years, and when I first met my husband, I kind of knew that I wanted my sex life with him to be different than what had been in the past. What I mean by that is I was what you might call a serial monogamist. So I went from relationship to relationship, usually about the 2-year mark. And what I would find quite often is that around that 2-year mark for me, I would stop being sexually attracted or wanting to be in that sexual space with a partner. And I didn't understand why. So when I met my husband, I was like, okay, I don't want this to happen again. I want our sex life to live longer term. So what we started doing together is practicing Tantra. And my theory was, if we can do Tantra practices and we can have a different type of sex than the sex that is usually at the beginning of a relationship, then maybe when that kind of limerence phase, that honeymoon phase ends, we're still going to be wanting to be intimately connected and sexual together. So as I say, we started practicing Tantra. We then started teaching Tantra workshops at festivals and in yoga studios. And some of the responses I got back from people was just absolutely breathtaking. So I had a woman come up to me at the end of a workshop at a festival, and she was crying, and she said, I've needed to do that for the past 30 years with my husband. So we realized that there was a lot of potential with me doing this type of work and that it is needed. So after looking into Tantra, I realized a lot of the authors of the books I was reading, they're sex therapists. I didn't know what a sex therapist was, and I was like, what's a sex therapist?
Yeah, definitely. I can relate.
So then I started reading, what's a sex therapist? And the more I read, the more I loved. And it was just kind of a natural progression from that, really.
That's amazing. Right, in terms of this hitting the 2-year moment, I can totally relate. It's a hard work.
Yeah, and I think some of us get really basic sex education in school, but what we don't learn about is sexual desire and the way that the chemicals work in the brain when we're attracted to people, and how these things can change over the course of a lifespan, over the course of a relationship. So we end up thinking, oh, I don't like this person anymore, I don't love them, I'm not attracted to them, when actually it might just be that we have a different type of desire than what we think that we have. And we might think that sex has to look a certain way when actually it can look a multitude of ways. So if we had a different type of education that included those facets, then maybe we would have more connected sex or more deeper quality relationships.
Definitely. That sex education at school, you said we get very minimum, I would say, from where I come from, we get nothing, really.
Yes.
So then you have to figure everything out yourself years later. Yeah. Very difficult.
And even to this day, I hope it's got better, but still I doubt they're talking about female pleasure in sex ed. Please tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to know.
Yeah, if anything has changed, please let us know.
Please let us know. But yeah, that is my want, for better sex education, one that's not done on fear mongering, but one that's pleasure based instead of fear based.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about breast size and body image. It's no secret that societal expectations around breasts can have a significant impact on women's idea of how she looks, how she feels, the self-esteem. How do you help your clients address the negative impact of societal expectations?
Yeah, I think this is a really tricky one because it's so insidious. A lot of what we think around women's pleasure, women's sexuality, and also confidence, like what we look like, it's cultural messaging that we've had since we were born. So for us to unpick and rewrite it, it takes quite a deep exploration. I think what we can do is look at where these messages came from that each individual has heard themselves. You know, is it from the media? Is it from their parents? Is it from ex-partners? Things like that. We can work on self-esteem and confidence. And, you know, you listen to that podcast and Natasha talks about this a lot. It's about an inner confidence, about reclaiming who you are as your own person rather than an external confidence that people might see as confidence, and acceptance and appreciation of the body, right? So this is my body, this is what I look like, this is what I feel like, and if we're managing to cover all of those aspects, so rewriting the societal scripts, the scripts that are personal to us, tuning into body confidence and like learning about our own bodies, then it helps us to just like come into a more empowered space, right?
So what could you suggest to someone who's just starting this work? What would be the first thing to do? Like write a list of things that I like about myself. That's generally what people suggest.
Yeah, so I think it can be maybe writing a list of all of the things that you've heard that may have negatively impacted what you believe about your body, and then write a list about everything that you as your own person, ignoring all of that, like and appreciate and admire about your body, right? And I always say when we talk about things like this, it doesn't have to be, let's say I am looking in the mirror and I'm looking at my whole body and I'm trying to think of the positives that associate with that part of the body. And this is an exercise I give to people often. If we get to a part of the body that we don't like, you know, let's say I get to my eyes and I'm like, oh, I don't like my green eyes. Well, what do my eyes give me? Well, personally, my eyes allow me to see my pets, right? And if you know me, you'll know that I love my pets. So even if I don't like the color green of my eyes, I can appreciate, well, that part of my body does something for me. So we can do this over the whole body, right? And we can write a list of appreciations, admirations about the body. We can do this exercise by looking in the mirror. And if you do this every day, I guarantee your relationship to your body will start to change. And you don't ever have to be in a place where you're like, wow, I love my body, right? Because we're human and we're going to have hang-ups, and that's okay. But can we get to a place where we can like something about that part of the body, right? I like the way I have this freckle on my arm, even if I don't like my arm. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But how do we stop comparing ourselves? Because yeah, I can appreciate, I love this part because it gives me this or allows me to do this thing. But then, well, actually this person has better eyes or better breasts in this case.
Yeah. And again, it's so tricky because like, who says what is better? These are these unwritten rules that we all kind of hear and abide by. But why are your eyes better than my eyes? I mean, she does have beautiful eyes. So I think it's just bringing your mind back to that thought process, right? Like, oh, I did it again. I did that comparing. Okay, let's try to ignore that for now and just focus on myself. And then you're going to compare again. Oh, I did it again. I'm comparing again. Okay, let's just try to focus on myself. But I think we are all humans, right? It's like, it's nature of the game. Some of us compare more, some of us compare less. But just trying to bring it back to yourself every time. It's hard.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think over the years I started liking myself, but I constantly also look at other people. Oh, I want this. And then what do I do to then get this? Oh, like, do I really need it?
Yeah.
It's like this constant question.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us live in a scarcity mindset as well, myself included. Scarcity mindset is where, I don't know, let's say you're doing really well in your career and let's say we're doing the same job and then I see you and I'm like, oh, you're doing so well. that makes me feel like I can't do as well because maybe there's only so much goodness that there is available in the world, right? So scarcity mindset is like, oh, you have this thing, I want that thing, now I feel like I can't have it. Or I can't share my business news with you because if you know what I know, then maybe it's the opportunities are going to be taken away from me. So that's scarcity mindset, right? And I feel like if we work collectively as a culture, we can start to transition into like abundance mindset as well, which is like, you can do well at your job, I can do well at my job, you can have amazing eyes, I can have amazing eyes, and like that's okay because it isn't a competition. But I know life feels like it is a competition, right? And that's why it's so hard. And I know with social media especially, don't follow Instagram accounts that make you feel rubbish. Like, don't do that to yourself. I know lots of people, lots of my clients, lots of my friends talk to me about this, and I think follow people that make you feel good. If you're like looking at the images and you're like, oh, and it's making you feel bad, let's just do a cleanse of that.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, agree. So let's say I'm working on my own body image issues. How do I then communicate with my new partner? Let's say I started dating someone new. How do I talk to them about it?
Talk to them about having body confidence issues?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's all about communication, and good communication can only happen if two people want to have good communication.
Definitely.
So we can try our best to communicate well with a partner, but if they're shut down, they're not responding, they're not open-minded to having these types of communication, then it's nearly impossible to have this type of conversation with someone. But I think transparency in most cases is definitely key, and sharing your self-confidence issues with a new partner, putting any boundaries down. Let's say you don't like if your belly being touched, right? This is a common one. Maybe it makes you feel strange. If you don't like your belly being touched, putting that boundary down with a partner so that they know, okay, when we're in a romantic space or a sexual space, I can't touch your belly. Or it might be, oh, if I'm not expecting it, you can't touch my belly. And they know, okay, well, if we're just like sitting on the sofa, I won't do it. But if we're in a sexual space and we're touching each other's bodies and there's awareness there, then maybe I can start to bring a bit more touch of the belly in this example in. So I think putting your feelings out there, ideally if the other person is also open to transparent communication, and then putting down boundaries of what you think is and isn't appropriate for you, and knowing that these can change as well. So maybe when you're first getting to know someone, you might not like that type of touch, but as your relationship continues, for example, you might be more open-minded to different types of touches and experiences. So I think, yeah, it's really important to name that, so you're not in a position where your body is like backing away and withdrawing from the person or the sexual or even romantic experience, because then we're kind of creating this negative pathway in the brain that you don't feel safe.
Totally understand. So let's say we have some past experiences that we didn't enjoy, for example, in terms of like touching breasts. How can we work with a new partner to then turn it around and make it like a positive part of our body?
Yeah, so I think if that's the one, if it's about like, let's reclaim the breasts as a sexual part of the body when before they've been cut off for whatever reason, again, it's about boundaries and communication. And then I think really importantly is baby steps. So it might start with just being in your underwear in front of someone, maybe them witnessing your breasts is like a first step. Then it might be, okay, well, I'll take my underwear off and maybe you can stroke my breasts with like a firm touch. And then again, it might be with like a softer touch. And then maybe they can kiss breasts and so on and so on. And I think it's about that almost graduated exposure so you can maintain a regulated nervous system as it's happening. Now, if the person you're with, you're trying something and your body is screaming no, you know, maybe you feel like this withdrawal, maybe your anxiety spikes, maybe you feel a little bit shut down, well, that's an indication that you've gone too far. And you might want to go back a step or back a couple of steps, work on that for a while. But these slow steps are what's really important, because like I mentioned before, we're letting the nervous system know that this is a safe part of the body to be explored in a sexual practice. if it feels safe to do so. Now, the tricky thing with this is if the partner doesn't listen to the boundaries.
True.
And, you know, that's not good for anyone. I think if your partner's not listening to the boundaries, then you should be taking it off the table completely, because how can you trust to be in a sexual interaction with that person until they, again, learn what the boundaries are and then like abide by them?
Makes sense. What if we don't have a partner, we just want to learn about ourselves and explore the breast play ourselves? What can we do? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I think breast massage is a fantastic thing to do, and you can do this you know, if you've had a mastectomy, if you don't have like as much breast tissue as maybe you used to have. Men can do this as well, because we all have breast tissue, right? So I think what we can do is breast massage, get some olive oil, get some massage oil, get something that feels really good in your hands. Spend some time just like connecting to your breast by massaging. You can go clockwise, anti-clockwise, work with like a deeper grip, a softer grip, and just work out what feels nice. Maybe the nipple feels too sensitive, but the base of the breast feels good. Or maybe you don't like to touch the base of the breast, but maybe the nipple feels where there's like some erotic energy. So it's about exploring on your own. I say to people, make it into like a solo date night, right? We don't want to rush this. Like, have a bath, luxuriate, light some candles, put on some who's like a romantic singer who
I would put on some piano music, probably myself. Piano solo.
Yes. I don't know, put some Sean Paul, whatever you like to listen to, and massage your breasts and really tune into it and go where the sensation is inviting you to go. So I think it's such a beautiful tool for embodiment. We don't want to be touching the breast in a mechanical way where we're not connected to it. We want to be feeling into it, connecting into it. You know, maybe start by stroking your whole body and then zone into the breasts.
Very interesting.
But make it sensual, right? Enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, there's no point doing it. Stop the session, try again a different day when you're feeling in a different headspace.
So you've mentioned the nipple sensitivity. Can some hormonal changes that are happening during month impact it? Because sometimes you feel like, oh, actually this one feels good, but you try in 2 weeks time, like, oh, actually this one doesn't. What am I like, do I not like it anymore, or is it just my body that has changed?
Exactly. So the body changes for anyone who goes through a period, through these hormonal changes every month. Some people, it won't affect the breast sensitivity at all, but for some people you may get achy breasts, your breasts may feel fuller, and it's like that heaviness, that weight that can make them a bit sorer. You might have even like, not stabbing's a bit severe, but the kind of prickling, stabbing sensation in the nipple sensitivity as the month changes. Some people get this the week before their period, some people get this over their period, and some people get this at, like, around ovulation. So it can change depending on the person. So this is when daily consent comes into play. Now, consent is as you know, is agreeing to have a type of sexual interaction with a person. And maybe it's kind of explicit because it's someone that you have a lot of sex with, so it's kind of, you just assume that there's consent to have sex with that person. But what we need to make sure is that there is consent every day you're intimate with that person. And what that means is the activities and touch-based practices may change depending on the day and depending how you're feeling, depending what you want. So just because you liked your nipples to be kissed last week doesn't mean that the next week that's going to feel good and pleasurable to you. So being aware of what feels good, and again, doing solo massage, solo play is a really good way to understand this kind of routine that your body goes through, if it does have a routine. And like always, explaining this to the person or people that you're having sex with, if you are having sex with anyone, because then they can adapt what they feel like they're going to automatically do. And I know some people shy away from sharing that with their partner, shy away from saying, oh, actually that's hurting today, or that feels uncomfortable. But again, we want your body to feel safe to be in a sexual space, and if it's going through something painful, it's going to be really hard to relax into that.
Definitely, yeah. So we talked about like what happens with our sensitivity over like during the month during our menstrual cycle, but for example, what about life changes? So we start breastfeeding. How do we reclaim that our relationship with breasts after? Because I was like, well, now this part of my body belongs to a child, and then you stop breastfeeding, and 2 years, a year later, sorry, I don't know how long you breastfeed
We
for.
don't have children. So.
And then you're like, oh, now it's mine again?
Yes.
Or how does it continue being mine if I have this another human being being fed using my breasts?
Yeah, so this is a really important one that I see quite often. Mums can feel like their breasts have become quite medicalized in a way, that they are not a part of a sexual appetite anymore, but instead they are like for connection with the baby, nurturing the baby, feeding the baby. And often when a mum has a newborn, as well as the actual breastfeeding themselves, they have a baby like touching them a lot of the day, and this can mean that you can feel quite tapped out. So if you have a partner and you've got a newborn and you're having breastfeeding, or you're having a lot of contact skin on skin with a baby, you might be in a place where you don't really want to be in physical contact with anyone else. And this is where problems can come, because partners can be like, oh, you don't want to have sex with me, or you don't want to hug me, or you want to have time on your own when I get home from work, for example. This is the type of stuff I hear about often. And it's because the mums in those examples are just like, oh, I don't want anything on me, get away from me. So I think when breastfeeding finishes and you don't have as much skin-on-skin contact with the baby, that is a really good time, if you want to start getting your breasts, as we're talking about, back into this sexual space. And I think it's about checking in with pain and discomfort, checking in with if anything's changed for you sensation-wise, which you can explore on your own or with a partner. And then starting to experiment. Maybe your partner can do breast massage on you. Maybe you can I don't know, do anything that you feel like you want to do. Experiment with nipple clamps if that feels good. Maybe you need to have like a deeper, harder, what's it called, point of contact for you to feel good. Maybe you need a lighter point of contact because it feels sensitive. So it's about re-exploring on your own and with your partner what feels right now, and then again, baby steps, gradually bringing that back into your sexual repertoire.
Makes sense. So that's more like I stop breastfeeding and then I'm gonna reclaim my breast. But how do I do it while I'm breastfeeding? I feel like this bit I don't know how to do, like mentally switch from, okay, now I'm a mum and I'm not a mum anymore, like for that 10 minutes or 20.
Yeah, so it's really difficult. I think getting the baby out of the room is good. Lots of people have their babies in the room, and that can really inhibit sex life because you don't want to do it because the baby's around. So if there's possible for the baby to be sleeping somewhere else, then that's just opened up more space to be intimate. It's about trying to change the headspace. So what can you do to connect with your partner in the moment? Maybe you can sit down, have a glass of wine, and just talk to your partner about stuff that doesn't include the baby. Because again, when you have children, a lot of what I hear is that conversations then become around like, did he eat today? Did you change the nappy? Things like that. So let's talk about like your goals, your wishes, your desires. Connect like you might do if you're on a date. Have a glass of wine if that suits you. You might want to practice some eye gazing, where you set the timer for 2 minutes and look into each other's eyes. Maybe lighting candles in the bedroom. What we're trying to do is just shift so that the unconscious is shifting out of motherhood, parenthood, and going into one of like sensuality and connection. You might even want to do something on your own before you come in with your partner, right? Like have a bath, have a shower, do some yoga stretches or some breathing. Just take a moment being your own person, not mum.
I understand.
Yeah.
Difficult.
It's so difficult.
So we talked about breastfeeding as like a life change. What about breast cancer? How do you like keep your body still how do you keep your breast still this sexual thing rather than this thing it's impacting my life negatively?
Yeah, so breast cancer can impact negatively in, as you can imagine, many ways. It has that medicalized issue that I just spoke about breastfeeding. So the breasts become something that are looked at by like doctors and nurses and have treatment to, so lots of people become quite detached from them. Going through a treatment cancer process can of course lead to trauma. Trauma can lead to a freeze response, which is a dissociation from the body. So you might feel that you're not connected to your body, you don't notice sensations as much as you used to. You might feel unwell. So of course, most of us don't feel that sexual if we're feeling nauseous or we're feeling particularly tired. The hormones can get interfered with certain types of chemotherapy, and that can affect just like our sexual desire, our sexual response. And obviously, if we have any surgery, any mastectomies, we are then having to connect to a different body than we had before this process began. So, was that the question?
Yes. It was. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. All right. Circling back to this, feeling confident about ourselves and breast-related issues impacting our self-esteem. How do you think lingerie can help us?
So, lingerie is something that can, for some people, for lots of people, make us feel really sexy. And lingerie is awesome because there's so many different types, right? We can have like beautiful lingerie that you do. We can have more fetish lingerie. We can have kinky lingerie. We can have, lingerie that isn't as exposing, if you want to wear like a vest and silk boxers, right? There's like a whole array to make it something that really suits you as a person, and to make you feel sexy and good. I think it's such a fantastic tool, and it's fun. So sometimes I invite my clients, right, this is your homework, go and do like lingerie shopping, choose something for each other, choose something for yourself. And it's just like a nice date day on your own or with a person, and then that can spill into the evening as well.
Do you think it could be considered some kind of like a short-term solution? Because I can feel like today I'm not feeling great about myself, but or let's say I have a year when I'm not feeling great about myself, but instead I just go lingerie shopping thinking, well, I'm gonna feel good for 5 minutes, and then that's kind of, you have like a hole in the wall instead of properly fixing, like put a piece of paper on it. Do you think like we should just go for like a quick fix solutions and say, oh, I'm gonna buy some new lingerie, feel good, or should we rather work on ourselves more?
I think both. I don't see lingerie as a quick fix solution, because I think you can wear that lingerie multiple times and that's going to make you feel good in those moments. But I do think we need to get to the base of the issue as well. And maybe there isn't an issue. Maybe you feel fantastic and that just like helps you feel even better. Ways that you can increase body confidence longer term, so you're not just like plastering up the hole, as you say, is mantras every day about body confidence. Journaling is a really good way if you can't afford therapy, or as a tool, as well as just putting pen on paper, writing whatever comes out, and as we discussed earlier, trying to work out the social conditioning that you have. But I think it all works, right? Why not make yourself feel good in the moment?
What do you mean by social conditioning? Sorry.
Social conditioning to do with what ideas we have around what types of bodies are and are not acceptable that we've learned through our lives. So trying to work out where those scripts came from and then unpicking them, because they're only there if we believe them.
True. So because you also do yoga.
Yes.
How can yoga help us with like reclaiming who we are, feeling better about ourselves, not just from the physical, being more flexible and just some exercise point of view?
Yeah. So especially if we've experienced any trauma in the past, like we were talking about earlier, lots of people who experience trauma get stuck in this freeze response. So I see depression and freeze response as a very similar symptom of the nervous system. Now, if we get stuck in a freeze response, as I mentioned previously, we are dissociated. So if we're dissociated, I think the number one thing that can help us become associated is yoga. Now, doing yoga, you are of course practicing being in the body, you're moving the body, you're doing breath, you're doing meditation, so you're doing all the things that activate the rest and digest symptom of the nervous system, which is like, that's what we want to be living in as much of the time as possible. We are moving our bodies, which is letting us firstly just like tune into sensation more, because if we don't know how to be in the body, how can we enjoy sex? How can we feel confident as a sexual being? Because we're not in the body, so we can't experience it. And I think, you know, if we're going to go a little bit deeper in the yoga and tantra field and other fields as well, we have the concept of the chakra system. Just briefly, in case you don't know what the chakra system is, the idea is there are 7 main energy channels that are within the body, starting at the base of the spine around the genitals, traveling up adjacent to the spine to the crown of the head. Now, each chakra can like rotate a bit too slowly, rotate a bit too quickly. It means it's a bit off balance, and each chakra has like a name, a location, a color, a frequency that are associated with it, as well as like behavioral and personality aspects that align with it. Now, the second chakra, which is just below the belly button, is our center for sexuality. Now, if you're practicing yoga, anything that incorporates hip openers, so butterfly pose, if you know what that is, where if your feet together, your knees wide, anything like that, that stimulates the second chakra, which in theory creates more sexuality around the body. So by practicing yoga, not only are we we're regulating the nervous system, we are reminding ourselves that it's safe to be in our bodies. We are, if we're doing hip openers, activating that sexual center, and then we have like breath and meditation, which are all good stuff too, right?
Apart from the butterfly pose, anything else you can suggest?
So like frog pose, side splits, even like warrior twos and things like that, because your legs are wide. Any type of, you know, when you're sitting and you've got your legs wide like this and you're leaning forward or over each leg, anything like this really. We're trying to target like the hip flexors, the inside of the thighs, maybe the outside of the hips and the buttocks as well.
Can breast size actually impact our pleasure in sex? Like, so is it like the bigger breasts you have, the more pleasure you can have? Do you need maybe larger nipples, because then they're going to be more sensitive? Can you say a bit more about that?
As far as I'm aware, no. As far as I'm aware, any breast of any size and shape can have as much pleasure of other breasts of different sizes and shapes. I guess it depends how many nerve endings are available in your breast, and this can change, right? We have different amount of nerve endings throughout the body. I know in the clitoris, some people have like more nerve endings than other people. I would say it's to do with that rather than like size or shape or anything, as far as I'm aware. But if you guys have any anecdotal information, then I'll be really interested to know.
What about if you decide to get breast augmentation surgery? Could it like possibly? I know you're not a doctor. However, like, did you ever have any clients that said, well, after this one, I feel like I don't feel as connected to my breasts because there is an implant inside? Like,
I actually haven't. I haven't had that experience. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Maybe it does. I haven't had anyone share that with me. What I have had is people going through menopause and having reduced sensation through menopause, both breasts and vaginally, clitorally, as well as sexual desire lessening, which it does for some folks through menopause. There's also this like reduced nerve ending stimulation. So I have had that.
Okay, makes sense. Are there any resources or groups you can recommend for women who like are struggling with their self-esteem, terms like, oh, I don't like my breasts? Is there anything that apart from going to therapy we can actually do?
Yeah, so I think at the moment social media groups are like the best way to go. I don't know of any like real groups in person, but for people who are experiencing vaginismus, so this like involuntary contraction of the pelvic floor muscle, which makes it hard to have sex, or impossible to have sex, there's a really great group called the Vaginismus Network. They're on Instagram, so the Vaginismus Network. I also follow a few women who talk about like body confidence, body issues, and they're all fantastic. I have written down their names. So yes, we've got Self Love Live, so Self Love and then Live, Liv. We've got Emma M Clarkson, so it's M with an underscore Clarkson, and then I'm going to spell this one for you, Mikazon. So Mikazon. All of those women really debunk like myths around what bodies have to look like, and they're really like transparent, and just I think they're really lovely accounts to follow for this.
You said the best groups will be social media groups, and as soon as you said that, I'm like, ooh,
I saw.
But actually, social media, that's not good for us, right? That's not good for self-confidence. And you're like, well, social media groups.
This is why we have to follow people that make us feel good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think I exhausted all my questions. Well, thank you so much, Becky.
You're so welcome.
Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I've learned so much. Could you list 5 things for me that we can do today for ourselves to empower our self-esteem, how to just feel better today?
Yeah, so 5
Not
things.
the long term, but like something
Today.
that we can do today.
Okay, so as you were asking earlier, I think buy some underwear that makes you feel good. If you don't love underwear, then buy an outfit that makes you feel sexy, right? Buy something that makes you feel really great within yourself. Dance to your favorite song every single day. Put the song on, dance around the room, close your eyes, be sensual with yourself. Start a self-touch practice, so either solo sex, breast massage, having a bath with oils where you stroke your entire body, anything you want, or all of the above, but some type of solo self-sensual touch. Look into the mirror and either say verbal mantras about like appreciations for yourself, what you like about yourself, ideally naked, and look at your body so you're really like connecting to this space. And buy a new sex toy. So again, you can do this with, if you're in a relationship with someone else, make it to a date, go and explore, go to the shops, order online, or if you're solo, then spend your time and really work out what's gonna hit the spot for you.
I really liked when you said dance to your favorite song every day. I'm gonna try that. I haven't done it for ages.
It's essential. It's like amazing for this empowerment, embodiment, and also it regulates the nervous system. So it literally stops the stress cycle within the body. So it's just like such a fantastic thing that we should all be doing every day.
Yeah, music has such a great impact. You literally just, if you were feeling worse that day, you put on some favorite song. I normally wouldn't dance to it, but from today I'm gonna try.
Dance to it.
I'm gonna try. I just listen to like, oh yeah, feeling better. Definitely. Thank you so much, Becky. I really can't wait to hear more about your work and listen to more podcasts.
You're so
Any
welcome.
more coming up? Any more guests you have in mind?
No, I paused the podcast for a while, but I am intending to get back on it. I keep on getting messages from people being like, where are the podcasts? So keep your eyes peeled. They will be coming. Maybe like the summer I'm going to get back on it because I've just got a few random bits I need to finish up before then. But yeah, you can always connect with me on my website, read my articles and blogs and all that stuff. It's just my name, so as long as you can work out how to spell Crepsley, then you're golden. So I'm not going to spell it, you can guess. But yeah, it was such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.